I've always been a man of reason, grounded in the tangible world. As a freelance writer in a small, nondescript town, I found comfort in the predictability of my days. My life was an unending cycle of deadlines, diner coffee, and quiet evenings. That was, until the night my fingernails decided to betray all logic. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. I remember glancing down at my hands while typing an article and noticed every morning presented a new shock, my fingertips adorned with these inexplicable keratin blades. At first, I sought logical explanations. Dietary changes, a medical anomaly, perhaps. The true horror, however, began the night I decided to trim these unwelcome appendages. As the clippers sliced through the first nail, a faint whisper tickled my ears. It was like the rustling of dry leaves, a hushed, unintelligible muttering that ceased as soon as the clipping fell away. I paused, glancing around my small cluttered apartment, searching for a logical source of the sound. Finding none, I shook my head, attributing it to the strain of recent sleepless nights. But with each nail I trimmed, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They swirled around me, voices without form, speaking in urgent, hushed tones. My heart pounded against my chest, a mixture of fear and fascination taking hold. I was no stranger to the strange and macabre in my writings, but to experience such a phenomenon in the flesh was a different ordeal entirely. As I collected the clippings, the whispers ceased abruptly, leaving behind a haunting silence. I sat there, amidst the scattered remains of my nails, a sense of dread slowly seeping into my bones. What were these whispers? Were they trying to convey a message? My mind, once a haven of skepticism, now teetered on the brink of a terrifying unknown. That night, sleep was a stranger. My dreams were haunted by shadowy figures murmuring secrets just beyond my understanding. The morning light brought no relief, only the unnerving realization that my life had veered into the realm of the inexplicable. As the days wore on, my routine was replaced by a growing obsession. I started documenting each trimming session, recording the whispers, playing them back at different speeds, trying desperately to decipher their meaning. The secrets they seemed to hold felt significant, not just. It was during one of these sessions that I first understood a phrase, a name whispered with such clarity it sent chills down my spine. It was a name I knew, one belonging to a person shrouded in the town's collective mystery. The revelation marked the beginning of my descent into a world where whispers held truths, and my nails became the harbingers of secrets best left buried. The name the whispers revealed belonged to Eleanor McTavish, a woman who had vanished from our town under mysterious circumstances years ago. Her disappearance had been the subject of local gossip and wild speculation, but no trace of her was ever found. The police had long closed the case, relegating it to the town's collection of unsolved mysteries. As I replayed the recording, the whisper of her name sent a shiver down my spine. Why was my bizarre affliction connected to Eleanor McTavish? The rational part of my mind fought for a logical explanation, but deep down, I knew I was dealing with something beyond the realm of science. With each nail-trimming session, the whispers grew more coherent, revealing snippets of conversations, locations, and events linked to Eleanor's disappearance. I found myself drawn into an investigation led not by clues, but by ghostly murmurs emanating from my own body. My daily life began to unravel as I delved deeper into the mystery. I missed deadlines, ignored calls from friends, and spent hours locked in my apartment, poring over old newspapers and online articles about Eleanor. The whispers seemed to guide me, leading me down a rabbit hole of dark secrets and hidden truths. One evening, as I sat hunched over my desk, a particularly clear whisper caught my attention. The old Willow Creek Road, it hissed, sending a jolt through me. That road led to an abandoned part of town, where dilapidated houses stood as silent witnesses to better times. I had always avoided that area, but now it seemed inextricably linked to the puzzle I was desperately trying to solve. I decided to visit Willow Creek Road the next day. The whispers had become a constant presence in my life, an eerie soundtrack that only I could hear. As I drove down the neglected road, the dilapidated houses loomed like specters of the past. My heart raced with a mix of fear and anticipation. What was I hoping to find? Proof that I wasn't losing my mind. The whispers grew louder as I approached an old, weather-beaten house at the end of the road. Its windows were boarded up, and the garden was overrun with wild vegetation. The house had an oppressive aura, as if it was hiding secrets in its decaying walls. I hesitated at the entrance, the whispers now a cacophony in my head. Go inside, they urged. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the creaking door and stepped into the musty interior. The house was a time capsule of neglect. Dust-covered furniture, faded photographs, and a pervasive sense of abandonment filled the space. As I wandered through the rooms, the whispers guided me, their tone urgent and insistent. In the basement, I found it a hidden room behind a false wall. The air was thick with the stench of decay. My hands trembled as I pulled away the rotting wood, revealing a small dark space. Inside, amidst the cobwebs and damp, lay a collection of personal items, a woman's clothes, a diary, and a photograph of Eleanor McTavish. The whispers fell silent, their mission seemingly complete. I stood there, frozen in horror and realization. The diary contained Eleanor's account of her last days, her fear palpable in the hurried scribbles. She had been hiding from someone dangerous. The diary ended abruptly, leaving her fate unknown. I emerged from the house as the sun began to set, the weight of my discovery heavy on my shoulders. The whispers had led me to a chilling truth, but so many questions remained unanswered. Who had Eleanor been hiding from? What had happened to her? As I drove back home, the whispers resumed their cryptic course. But now, they spoke of something else, something even darker. My journey into the heart of this mystery was far from over. The fingernails, once a mere curiosity, had become my curse, a relentless force driving me towards truths I was not sure I wanted to uncover. The revelation in the hidden room had changed everything. My once ordinary life had transformed into a surreal journey through whispers and shadows. The diary's last entry dated back to a chilly autumn night, not long before Eleanor Matevish had vanished into thin air. Her words were etched with fear, a desperate plea for help that had remained unheard for years. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being pulled into something much larger and more sinister than I had ever imagined. The whispers continued, more insistent now, revealing fragments of conversations and veiled threats. They painted a picture of a woman terrorized, a secret she held that others desperately wanted to remain hidden. I began to feel eyes on me wherever I went. The once familiar streets of my town took on a menacing quality, shadows seeming to move just beyond my line of sight. My sleep was plagued with nightmares, Eleanor's frightened face merging with shadowy figures that whispered from the darkness. As the days passed, my obsession grew. I was no longer just a passive listener to the whispers. I felt compelled to act, to unravel the web of secrets that had ensnared me. I started visiting locations the whispers mentioned, piecing together a map of Eleanor's last days. One location was mentioned more frequently than others: an old, abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. It had a notorious reputation, shrouded in rumors of illegal activities and unsavory characters. As I drove there, the whispers crescendoed, a symphony of urgency and warning. The warehouse stood like a forgotten relic, its walls graffitied, windows broken. The air was heavy with the smell of decay and dampness. As I stepped inside, the temperature seemed to drop, and the whispers fell silent, as if holding their breath. I moved cautiously, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. The warehouse was a labyrinth of corridors and rooms, each step taking me deeper into his heart. Then, in a small, secluded room, I found it a makeshift shrine, adorned with personal items, newspaper clippings about Eleanor, and candles long since burnt out. Chilled to the bone, I realized this wasn't just a case of a missing person. There was something much more dark and twisted at play. The whispers returned, a low, mournful wail that echoed off the walls. They spoke of rituals, obsessions, and a love turned into a perverse fascination. I left the warehouse with more questions than answers. Who had created this shrine? What was their connection to Eleanor? The whispers hinted at a deep, dark obsession, a stalker who had watched Eleanor's every move, leading to her disappearance. Back home, I pored over my notes, the map of locations, and the diary. The connections were there, but they were tenuous, shrouded in conjecture and supposition. The whispers, once a guiding force, now seemed to mock me with their vagueness. Then, one night, as I sat hunched over my desk, a new whisper broke through the cacophony. It was different, clearer, more direct. It spoke of a name I recognized: Jonathan Harker, a reclusive man who lived on the fringes of town. The whispers painted him as a shadowy figure, his life intertwined with Eleanor's in ways I couldn't yet comprehend. I knew what I had to do. I had to confront Jonathan Harker. The thought filled me with a mix of dread and determination. The whispers had led me this far, I couldn't turn back now. As I prepared to leave, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was stepping into a trap, a web woven by whispers and secrets. But I had to know the truth, no matter how dark or disturbing it might be. My life, once defined by reason and logic, had become a narrative written by unseen forces, pushing me towards an unknown, possibly terrifying destiny. The night was unsettlingly still as I made my way to Jonathan Harker's residence. Nestled on the outskirts of town, his home was an old, Victorian-style house, cloaked in an aura of neglect. Overgrown hedges and a creaky gate painted a picture of isolation. It was the perfect abode for someone harboring dark secrets. As I approached the door, the whispers grew frenetic, like a chorus of warning bells echoing in my mind. Each step felt heavier, as if I was walking into the very heart of my fears. I raised my hand to knock, hesitating for a moment. What would I find on the other side? Was I ready to face the truth? The door creaked open before my knuckles could rap against it, revealing Jonathan Harker. He was a tall, gaunt figure, his eyes sunken and hair unkempt. He peered at me with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. "Can I help you?" His voice was gravelly, unused. "I'm Johnny. I've been researching Eleanor Matevish's disappearance," I began, watching his reaction closely. A flicker of something fear, guilt, recognition passed through his eyes. "Eleanor," he echoed, his voice barely a whisper. I took a deep breath, stepping into the dimly lit foyer. "I believe you know something about her, about what happened to her." Jonathan motioned for me to follow him into a cluttered sitting room. The walls were lined with bookshelves, and the air was thick with the scent of old paper and dust. He gestured for me to take a seat, his hands trembling slightly. As we sat facing each other, the whispers subsided, as if they too were eager to hear what Jonathan had to say. He looked at me, a haunted expression in his eyes. Eleanor was special, he began, his voice laced with a sorrow that seemed to weigh him down. We were close, once. But things changed. I leaned forward, my heart pounding. What do you mean, changed? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. She discovered something dangerous. It was about the town, about some of the people in it. She found out things she shouldn't have. My mind raced. This aligned with the secrets the whispers had been revealing. What kind of things? I pressed. Jonathan glanced around nervously, as if the walls themselves might be listening. Dark things. Secrets buried deep. She threatened to expose them, and that's when she disappeared. The room fell colder, the shadows deeper. Who was behind it? I asked, a sense of dread creeping over me. Jonathan's gaze dropped to his hands. I can't, it's not safe to talk about it. They're still here, still watching. The gravity of his words hit me like a physical force. The whispers weren't just random secrets, they were fragments of a larger, more sinister truth that had ensnared Eleanor, and now me. I stood up, my resolve strengthening. Jonathan, I need to know. Eleanor's whispers led me to you. You're the key to uncovering the truth. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with fear and resignation. All right, he whispered. But we must be careful. They'll do anything to keep their secrets buried. As I left Jonathan's house that night, the whispers returned, a cacophonous soundtrack to my swirling thoughts. Eleanor's fate, the town's dark I knew then that my journey was far from over. I was no longer just a passive recipient of the whispers, I was an active player in a deadly game of secrets and shadows. And I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The next few days were a blur of frantic research and covert meetings with Jonathan Harker. We pieced together a timeline of events leading up to Eleanor's disappearance, cross-referencing the whispers with Jonathan's knowledge and public records. The deeper we delved, the more ominous the picture became. It turned out that Eleanor had stumbled upon a network of corruption involving some of the town's most influential figures. She had planned to expose them, armed with evidence of their misdeeds. But before she could bring the truth to light, she vanished. Jonathan was convinced that these same people were responsible for her disappearance. They're dangerous, Johnny, he warned me repeatedly. They'll stop at nothing to protect themselves. I was no stranger to fear, but this was different. It was a cold, creeping dread that settled in the pit of my stomach. The whispers were no longer just cryptic messages, they were echoes of a silenced voice crying out for justice. I realized I had two choices. Step away and try to reclaim some semblance of my old life, or see this through, whatever the cost. There was something about Eleanor's story, about the whispers, that wouldn't let me go. I couldn't turn my back on it. One evening, as I sat at my desk, surrounded by papers and recordings of the whispers, I heard a new message, one that made my blood run cold. The old mill, midnight. The truth awaits. The old mill was an abandoned building on the outskirts of town, a place shrouded in rumors and superstition. I knew going there was risky, possibly a trap, but I couldn't ignore the call. I told Jonathan about the message. He was hesitant, fearing it was a setup. But he agreed to accompany me, insisting we couldn't face this alone. Armed with flashlights and a sense of grim determination, we made our way to the mill as the clock approached midnight. The building loomed before us, a decaying monument to forgotten industry. Inside, the air was stale, thick with the weight of unspoken secrets. We moved cautiously, the beam of our flashlights cutting through the darkness. The whispers guided us, growing louder with each step. In the heart of the mill, we found a room that had been converted into a makeshift office. Papers, photographs, and files were strewn across the desk. It was evidence of the corruption Eleanor had uncovered, a trove of damning information. As we sifted through the documents, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Names, dates, transactions, it was all there. Eleanor had been right, and she had paid the ultimate price for her discovery. Suddenly, the room chilled. A sense of impending danger washed over us. We weren't alone. Shadows shifted, and figures emerged from the darkness, their intentions clear in their menacing approach. We were cornered, the evidence of their crimes laid bare before us. Their eyes were cold, their movements calculated. It was a standoff, with everything hanging in the balance. In that moment, I understood the true nature of the whispers. They weren't just remnants of a lost soul, they were a call to action, a demand for justice that refused to be silenced. With a surge of adrenaline, I knew what had to be done. We had to escape, to bring the truth to light. The whispers had led me to this moment, and I wasn't going to let Eleanor's voice be silenced again. The confrontation that followed was a blur of chaos and desperation. Jonathan and I fought with every ounce of our being, fueled by the need to expose the corruption that had poisoned our town. We emerged into the night, battered but alive, clutching the evidence that would finally bring the truth to light. The whispers had ceased, their purpose fulfilled. Eleanor's voice had been heard, and now it was our turn to speak for her. As we made our way to the authorities, the first light of dawn breaking on the horizon, I knew our battle was far from over. But we had taken the first step in unraveling the web of secrets and lies that had ensnared Eleanor McTavish in our town. The journey had changed me, stripping away my skepticism and opening my eyes to the horrors that lurked beneath the surface of everyday life. I had walked through the shadows and emerged with a newfound purpose. The whispers may have fallen silent, but their echo would resonate forever, a haunting reminder of the fragile line between truth and darkness.